beautiful woman. She has a career going. But it just again goes to show you that if you recall earlier when I talked about this kind of spectrum, this kind of layered kind of definition of who we are. And we talked about these surface ranges, right? Well, all of that stuff is just on the surface, you see. We very seldom know what's going on in the endopsychic realm of a person, what's really going on the inside. So all that stuff just surface. And apparently, she was not able to manage that stuff. So that bipolar, that manic depressive that so many people go through. I was about to tell you during break that all of us get depressed from time to time. Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's that when the depression reaches a degree that we cannot get out of, when the depression saps all the energy, that's when it becomes counterproductive and ultimately self-destructive. But another interesting thing, very often, it's very rarely that a person commits suicide where there was not some anger. If I would have to guess on Phyllis Hyman, it might have been that she had what we call abstract anger. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. That's also a category of anger. You could be angry just at life. Life had not treated me fair. There was something maybe missing from her life in spite of her wealth, in spite of her beauty and things that was missing, and she was angry. She might have been angry about her illness, But usually where there's suicide, there is some anger, and there is an object of the anger. As most suicides are a result of a person's acting out revenge against someone, something, somewhere. So it's a tragic, tragic thing. So there's, of course, the medical approach to the management of these mood swings. That's just one. But they really don't treat it, do they? They really just render a person basically passive, and so it deals with it at the symptomatic level, but it doesn't go down deep inside and really cure what it is that is causing this missing part of them, right? That is one of the unique domains of spiritual development, is that as you go through that process, and remember, as you go through certain degrees of development spiritually and psychologically, you will display a lot of the symptom that looks like some form of insanity. For instance, remember before when I was telling you that as you move up through these different levels of your being, the African ancestors call it the Amen and the Asar and the Chekum and et cetera, all these different levels. In Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, they talk about the Ein Sof and all of these other divisions of being. But what we have to understand that as we move deeper and deeper or up higher along the axis, into the hierarchy of our being, our identities changes. So naturally, clinically, when we look at a person like Jesus saying, "I am God," we'll diagnose this man schizophrenic, right? And all this, and give him some Prozac, right? The same would have been the case with a Buddha or Mahavir or Muhammad, and so forth, so on. But it is because there's tremendous shifts that goes on. So the difference between breakthrough and breakdown is very thin. But one thing for sure is that the mind as we know it has got to die, got to be killed. You cannot attain a higher identity without giving up your lower identity. That does not happen. So in many cases, a lot of the people that go through these crises, these mental crises, are very often our most sensitive and creative people. If you look very closely at them. And the great tragedy is that they're going through a natural evolution within the context of a culture that don't know how to shape that and guide that and hold it. In different times and in different cultures, you see, there will have been schools and societies that will take these people who are very precocious and help them, become accustomed to the new reality. And in our culture, we just lock them away in an asylum somewhere or load them up with drugs, and write them off. very often in ancient times, these would have been the very people who would have become the oracles, and the seers, the priests, and the priestesses. Because why? They have demonstrated the ability to step out of this level of reality to a higher level, presumably. Sometimes it goes the other way, right? And that can be distinguished because they may become pathological, violent, etc., etc. But it's a very interesting thing. Point is that there's a lot of Phyllis Hymens, you know, in our culture, because black people have a lot of depression. We have a lot of depression. You know, when the Indians, the American Indians, you know, you got to be depressed if they wiped out 18 million of your people, reduce you to a nation of a couple 100,000 people. You're going to drink, you're going to do dope, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have issues about your self-worth and value as a human being, right? So black people, as we continually undergo the embarrassment and the shame of our abdicating, you know what I mean, our ancient historical status, it just creates more and more of those. So at some point, and that's a good thing about you guys coming and taking this stuff, because hopefully you will not be selfish with this knowledge, you see, and share it. Incidentally, I don't know how many of you are interested, but certainly at the end of these 10 sessions, they are certified for continuing education. If you have like a license in therapy or counseling or something like that, you see me at the end of the sessions, I give you your certificates for that. You can send them down to Springfield. It has 45 hours of CEU units, and that takes care of your 2-year requirement in category 2. However, if you don't have a license that you need to just put in the CEUs for, still at the end of this course, I'd like to give everybody a certificate. And if you want to have that certificate, then please let her know, let Emma know, because I have to give you an exam. Right? I have to give you an exam. Well, that's I have to give you an exam. Make sure you're just not standing up here looking at me. All right? All right? I have to measure your retention of information. It won't be hard, but certainly give you a certificate as a anger analyst or specialist. You know, it could be something that you might want to pursue later on in life. Now, last time, I don't know where did we leave off at. We went all over the place, but I'm sure that we were looking at how this anger impacts across the spectrum of our being. And we had talked about how it affects us emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually, etc., etc., etc. I know we were looking at some things on how it affects us physically. You will notice, and just to finish off this little part of the overview, physically you will know, for instance, that anger impacts you in such a way that you experience an increased pressure. Your blood pressure goes up, right? Your blood pressure actually goes up. And that makes sense because your heart rate increased fourfold. Again, remember, what is nature doing? Anger is the emotional, it is the psychological, it is the physical response to the perception of an attack on our well-being. Just scares the hell out of us. And therefore, anger empowers us. It brings us to an optimum state in order to take an action, right? It is that old, fight or flight. That's right. Simple, right? And you have the energy to do either. The tragedy is that when we do neither, right, that energy just sits in the mind-body system. That's when you suppress it, right? Now, you can paint that plastic smile on your face and do all of that stuff, but you cannot trick on nature. The anger is there, and it will take its toll on you. And that becomes very dangerous now. Very dangerous, because it will destroy your emotional, psychological, and even in many instances, your physical health. But the point I'm making is that when this energy called anger, this biopsychic energy called anger, impacts on the body, it's bringing the body to this optimum state to take one of these two actions of fight and flight. And therefore, for the body to come to an optimal level, the heart has to beat faster because they got to pump more blood, right? You got to even breathe different. Have you noticed your breathing even change? Your breathing move from the diaphragm up to the chest here. You're maximizing oxidation. You start almost hyperventilating, don't you? Right? And so the body and mind system is being brought to an optimum state of energy in order to take an action. So naturally, with the increase of the heartbeat, the pressure is going to go up, right? Another thing you experience is the temperature of the body will increase dramatically. I'm hot now. Right. Literally, you are hot. I suppose some people get so hot that they go into spontaneous combustion. But in any case, we do experience an increase of temperature in the body, simply because we also, like everything else in the universe, still must obey the laws of thermodynamics, right? And therefore, in order for any of the systems, any of the processes in the body to speed up, there has to be heat, you see. And so the body produces more heat to speed up these processes in order to release more energy. So and you actually experience that as well, physically. And so forth and so on. You have a lot more tension. You can sometimes feel it. And you can ask it, so-and-so, you angry? No, but their temples are flaring, the energy about to bust out their head, their nostrils are flaring, and you can see them shaking. No, I'm not angry. You understand? They're clenching their feet, they're trying to hold that stuff in, right? And the tragedy, if they succeed in holding it in, it will implode inside and just destroy all of their subjectivity. You see? I mean, it's really a horrible, horrible thing to do. But again, if you got this ego mythology that you're trying to perpetuate, you have probably a lot of motivation to suppress your anger. Because I'm too sophisticated, I'm too well educated, I'm too spiritual. I've read the Bible, I've studied the Quran, I've read the Gita, I go to church, I'm a this, I'm a that, and I don't get angry. Right? Such denial. What do? We get upset. We get annoyed. We get irritated. Pissed off occasionally. But never, I can kill you, man. And the reality is that all of us get angry. Nature has endowed each and every one of us in here with the capacity to kill. Make no mistake of it. No mistake. Therefore, unless we are able to come out of denial and recognize that we have the capacity to do a lot of damage to another person, one of these times somebody's going to be triggered over that threshold, and you're going to wind up killing somebody. Or worse, somebody killing you. So we're going to talk about that too. So I want you, the point I'm trying to make is that anger impacts us across the whole spectrum of our being. It impacts us emotionally. It impacts us psychologically, physically, spiritually, and all of them are negative when it is not managed appropriately. Remember, I'm saying that the problem is not anger. The problem is the mismanagement of anger. Anger has a legitimate function in human behavior. It's necessary. Because when there's a real threat against your well-being, don't you need this bio-psychic energy called anger? Of course you do. Right? Of course you do. How else would you defend yourself in a legitimate situation? You need that. But when it is mismanaged, when it is suppressed, repressed, when it is acted out violently or internalized in a psychologically unhealthy way, then that is the thing we protested, right? And remember, it stands without any further need to justify the obvious fact that this mismanaged anger will render you totally incapable of making any spiritual progress. You can't make spiritual progress in that context. It's not possible. It has never happened. It never will happen. Not only can you not make spiritual progress, you can't even make any other kind of progress in just your ordinary relationships. It doesn't work. Most marriages fail because the two individuals, the man and the woman, cannot manage their anger. Cannot resolve conflict. And conflicts are inevitable. See, we have a lot of utopian ideals that are not related to reality at all. Anytime two human beings come into a relationship, they bring in two entire histories of conditioning. They're going to be in conflict. Conflict is inevitable. But if we're pursuing some kind of imaginary relationship that is conflict-free, then there are none on the planet. And if you don't have any skills at managing the inevitable conflict that arises in all personal relationships, then you're not going to be able to stabilize in a relationship with nobody. Very often, not even your children. They can't get along with you. There's some people, nobody gets along with. Their husband and wife can't get along with them. Their brother and sister can't get along with them. You see, no one can get along with them. Most of us have stepped into our adulthood emotionally illiterate, having no skills whatsoever for the effective management of our life. None. And we'll see that as we go deeper and deeper into it. So we can see then that this anger, the mismanagement and the suppression of this anger is a very deadly thing. It's a very deadly thing. Now, I said before break that we wanted to begin to go a little more into some of the specific arenas in life that we are challenged to manage our anger. Before I do that, let me put on the board for you the task of life that we all are challenged to deal with as we emerge from our respective family of origins. In our families of origin, you know, our nuclear families or what extended family that we come out of, the ideal is to prepare us for the world outside in very specific ways. And if we fail to pick up those skills within the context of our own upbringing, then it stands to reason that in the real world, we're going to have some problems. Now, the reality, folks, is this. All of us had a childhood, and all of us came from some kind of a family, some sort. And probably our mothers and our fathers were not any more perfect than we are. And we know we're not perfect. So hence, obviously, they made some mistakes. The problem, of course, is that these mistakes are very deep within our psyches, in our unconscious. And very often it's driving our adult behavior. And a couple of sessions after this one, we're going to go into this thing here. And where you'll begin to start really kind of seeing your condition. It's really interesting, though, most of us never have developed enough subjective sensitivity to see our own condition. In fact, we don't even think we are conditioned. We think we're making decisions that are spontaneous and reflective of the situations. No, not at all. Most of all of our reactions are just triggered from that deep part of us, and we have no idea. So you need to get in touch with that. But in any case, when we emerge from these family systems, we have certain tasks of life. It's an Adlerian term, so you all forgive me, I'm working in the Western idiom today. That we have to confront and negotiate in our adult life. The first one is work. A livelihood, right? Because when you come out of this family system, you got to be able to make a livelihood. And very often, if we have not been prepared, then we'll have trouble. And when I say make a livelihood, I don't mean simply get a job. Because the work that you do, probably as important as who you marry. I know that sounds strange to you, but I'm telling you that the work that you do, the way you make a living, plays a tremendous role and your bottom line experience of happiness. Hence, if you are on a job that you work in 8, 9 hours a day and you hate this stuff, half of your life is spent in a state of hate and anger. You have lost half of the opportunity to be happy in the course of a day just by going to work. It's deep. Buddha says that you must find the right livelihood. So I want to emphasize that. Right livelihood. Right livelihood.
Does that mean a job you enjoy?
It means that not a job that you enjoy, it means something, work that you love. Work through which you are making a contribution. You see. Work that you love, you will tend to be very successful. You see. All the things that you're looking for up front, you will get automatically. It's a byproduct. Problem is, of course, that most of us are so out of touch with who we are, right, that we don't know what's right for us. We don't have enough self-knowledge. We don't know what the hell we're supposed to do. We just doing whatever they told us would pay the most, or society says. But it's almost like you just married anybody society said. It's the same kind of irrational approach toward life. But it's only because we do not know the intimate relationship that our work has with our happiness and our peace of mind. You see? So I wanted you to understand that as we emerge from this process of being reared and enter into the real world, that we have to have developed the skills to find the right life. More about that as we go through the balance of these sessions. But again, up front here, I'm giving you a little bit of the metaphysics as we go along. You see, the other task is, of course, love. We all have the need to be loved and to love in return. It's built into the system. You don't have a choice. It is built into the structure of consciousness. You have no option. Like you have to breathe. Now you can fight it and hold your breath, right? But you can't kill yourself by holding your breath. Nature will force you to breathe. So you got to find somebody to hold your nose to help you not love. You got to get your friends together and talk you out of this going with this man or going with this woman. Y'all help me, because I might, you understand? The point is that you have to be able to meet your love needs. In the family, it was just dumped on you. It was a gratis. Your parents loved you simply because you were theirs, period. They didn't require you to do nothing. And in that, we start expecting the whole world now to give us that same affection or gratis. So we grow up very childish, you see. And what we do very often, we project that same expectation onto people that we meet in our adult world. If my mother has indiscriminately and unconditionally loved me, right? And that love has a certain pattern to it that is unique between the relationship that I have with her, right? And it feels good because it's unconditional. Now, when I get married, I will project instantly onto my wife that same expectation. Instantly. I'm not conscious of it. You see? But the difference is this. You, my mother, she ain't. Right? So I just can't say, okay, love me, because I put a ring on your finger. This is madness. So we have to learn then and develop those skills that will enable us to have the experience in life called love. Because life without love is meaningless. It is really meaningless. And one of the great tragedies of the modern world, particularly Western society, is that somehow or another we have bought the bankrupt notion that life can be worth living without love. Let me have a career. Phyllis Hyman had a career, and a good one. And the lady killed herself. If careers were adequate, you see, then you will have no phenomena like Phyllis Hyman's, right? And endless other people, right? Have a lot of money. A lot of people with money have blew their brains out there. Yes, sister.
You say you must develop the skills in order to receive love or to love?
To put it into play. We have the potential. It's built in. But a lot of times we don't have the skills to implement it. The potential is there. Again, a lot of our ego myths get in the way. Because you don't want to be vulnerable. You see? You don't want to be at risk. You want to protect yourself and curl up. Now, you cannot experience love curled all up. It means you have to be able to walk into the situation with every possibility of heartbreak. Yes, it's true. You go either way, but that has to be there to have the experience. And most of us don't have the ability to manage ourselves there. You see, it's very hard because those old tendencies tends to pull us out of that. That instinct is there to withdraw, to avoid. And that's a skill. In Buddhism, they call them skillful means. That was one of the aims and objectives in the teachings of the Buddha, was to provide you with the skills for maintaining or achieving maximum results from your life. So there is a skill, how to love. You know, love is a great art. Everybody's born with the potential to love. Very few are born and develop the ability and the skill to love. Love is a very rare phenomenon on this planet. Very, very rare. You would think otherwise. But trillions of us running around here interacting with each other. But love is very rare. And I suppose because the definition of love that I'm referring to is very different from the business that I talked about before. Remember? I mean, it's easy to have a business relationship with another person and disguise that as love. It's just business. Nothing wrong with it, right? But it's just business. But love is really you're trying to give something. It is characterized by the fact that it's a giving. It's not looking for anything. Hence, we use a mother's love for a child as the closest analogy that we have for talking about the authentic thing. Because a mother's love for a child is really quite a phenomenon, isn't it? Now, I'm not talking about these abnormal mothers. I'm talking about, you understand, normal mothers. Because, first of all, the love is totally unconditional. Period. It looks for nothing in return. It's not requiring anything. It is a one-way street, so to speak. Because it is a great... the beloved is a great opportunity to unload your love. You know, let me put it to you in some very strong terms. Most of the emotional misery, fact, underlying a lot of the insanity and emotional illnesses that we see plaguing people has been their effort to suppress this. We're talking about suppressing anger and how damaging that is. Oh, but this one here. Suppressing anger is just going to wipe out your mind. Suppress this, you lose your soul. You lose your soul.
Suppression of what? The
of
need
love.
for love or the
gift.
ability to give the love?
Yes, well, either one of them. Either one of them. You can't suppress it on either side. You can't suppress on either side. But we try to suppress, unfortunately, on both sides. I don't need no love, and I don't love nobody. Look at that. That's almost the American battle cry. I don't love nobody, and I don't need nobody to love me. Just give me some money.
What love got to do with it?
What love got to do with it? You see? Madness. Madness. And look at the people who are following that philosophy. Look at their life. It's horrendous. So we have to do this. You know, and again, that is developing the ability to move outside of the confines generated by this ego mythology. You see, we have to learn the skills to drop this ego. That's a skill. Most of us don't know how to drop the ego. It's very hard, in fact. But we have to learn that, you see. Presumably, ideally, within the context of a family. But we know, of course, that's almost rare and non-existent today. But again, I'm just simply pointing out the things that we need to be prepared for. The third thing, of course, is that we have to develop skills to cooperate. We have to have cooperative skills. We have to have them. Because again, why? We're all interdependent. None of us in here can survive independently of anybody else. You cannot farm all the food you eat, and most of us are not making the clothes and shoes we're wearing, the gas in your car. Our whole existence is dependent upon some other human being producing something. Right? And we have to learn how to cooperate. This radical individualism of I can do my own thing, that is strictly European, and it is disastrous. And it does not work. It's not even real, you see. And so we have to develop skills to enable us to cooperate and make friends. Have to know how to create friendships. We have to have those skills. Otherwise, you will move through life full of competition and with no friends. Have you met them out there, people like that? Totally competitive and friendless. An ugly thing. It's an ugly thing to see a human being reduced to that. You see. Again, those are tasks of life that we have to be able to meet. We have to be able to do that. The fourth one is your relationship to yourself. And that's very, very important. Because no matter how hard we try, you're not going to have a successful relationship with other people if first you don't have a successful relationship with yourself. You don't even know who you are. So how can you even have a self-relationship? Hence again, the first step is knowing who you are. But most of us, because we don't know who we are, we therefore have no relationship with ourselves, and we are alienated from our own life. One of the poets said that the greatest tragedy that befalls a person is to have lived their whole life and been absent the whole time. And that absence is experienced in a deep sense of lack of fulfillment. Now, nothing you're doing is giving you any fulfillment. You tried this, you tried that, you did this, you married him, you married her, you bought this, you bought that, and nothing fills that void inside, that abyss. Because you are absent from your own life. And when you are absent from your own life, that life is meaningless. It is meaningless. And the price you pay is one of uninterrupted misery. But what I call dukkha, suffering. One of the poets, I believe it must have been Thoreau, wrote, men and women, of course, are leading lives of quiet desperation. Desperation. Underneath all that pretty makeup and those handsome clothes and the well, beautiful haircuts and stylish suits, live misery and suffering and pain and hopelessness and bleakness. No relationship with the self. So we have to develop a relationship with ourselves. And the most important one, a part of that relationship with the self, is self-respect. Now, folks, you have to understand, I make a very deep distinction between self-respect and self-esteem. I've already told you self-esteem is a pseudo-phenomenon. It is false. It is fantasy. It is made of the same stuff that dreams are made of. Hindus have called it Maya, illusion, mythology, stuff you have invented about yourself that has no reality nowhere in your life at all. Self-esteem. Self-respect is a very different phenomenon. It's a very different relationship with yourself. Self-respect is based on the realization that I have imperfections, I have faults, I have shortcomings. And in spite of those imperfections, and in spite of those shortcomings, and in spite of those faults, I have value and worth as a human being. Case is closed. There's nothing to debate about. I exist, therefore I have value. Period. And the moment I cease to exist, you see, only then can anything or anyone be said to be worthless. Because nature, if she is maintaining you, nature does not maintain, existence does not maintain anything that does not have value. Period. It never happens. So the very fact that we exist means we have worth and value. And self-respect is not just the understanding of that, it is the feeling. You see, self-esteem is a cerebral phenomenon. It has to do with your philosophy, right? Self-respect is a felt experience. You feel that. You feel it the same place you feel love. You see, it's a felt, it's visceral. It permeates your whole being. And so you have to develop a relationship of self-respect, not self-delusion, right? Not self-deception. Incidentally, one of the things that we all will face at some point in our life is that we will come to a point where all of our self-deceptions dissolve. All of the self-deceptions that we've had about ourselves, I'm this, I'm that, I'm intelligent, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I'm honest, I'm fair, I'm brilliant. Life is going to bring you to those experiences where all of that mythology is going to be totally dissolved, and you're going to be left in a midlife crisis that will be hell. Been my observation that very few people enter the midlife crisis and emerge. Most people perish in that cycle. I had mentioned to Bilal, one of the series that I'm going to do is midlife rites of passages, because most of us have no way, no concept of how to get out of it. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Because all of that imaginary thinking that you did from your childhood, from the time you thought you could fly through windows, and that kind of magical thinking just followed you all the way up into your adulthood. Now you think I can make $20 billion. This is magical thinking that is carried over from your childhood somewhere, you see. And it's causing you all kinds of misery because you keep failing to make the $20 million. And therefore are experiencing shame in your own eyes. And then you sink into that depression. All because you were attempting life through the mind of a child who was like trying to a Superman complex or something. So we have to develop a very different relationship with ourselves, predicated on the fact that we all have imperfections, shortcomings, and faults, with no exception. All of us do. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. We'll work on them. We'll discover them, and we will work on them. But in the meantime, my value and worth as a human being is unquestioned. I don't need a PhD to be valuable. You see, I know we've been told that unless you get a PhD, you ain't nobody. Unless you go to Harvard, you ain't nobody. Unless you get you a big house somewhere, you ain't nobody. Unless you have this, you ain't nobody. So we've been fed this stuff so long that now we have this deep sense that, well, my God, without these things, I am nobody. But you are somebody when you hit the planet. Now, nothing else is required but you to celebrate. Life is a celebration. You've done. You made it. This is the graduation. This is the top of the rung. This is the big times, folks, right? The human body. And on this planet, there's been 8,400,000 other bodies you've been through to get to this human body. Who knows how long it's taking you to get that? You paid all of this. You graduated. There is no preparation. You don't have to be anybody. You are. Nobody says to a tree, be somebody. You're a tree. Done. What is there to be? You see? But our whole sense of worth is based on having more. Our identity is, we move horizontally. Have more. We have that have more mentality, right? Be more. Just be yourself. Just be more yourself. That's it. That's all you got to do. Why? Because God has reflected in each and everything in creation an aspect of His uniqueness, His greatness, His grandness. God is the sum total of that which exists, and in each particle of that which exists is a reflection of the immensity of the phenomena called God. Unique, not repeated at all. Hence, if you are endowed by virtue of the fact you exist with a quality in you of God that is in nobody else, and if you fail to unfold that and share it with creation, then you have cheated all of us. And you have betrayed your own, gift. Just be more of what you already are, as opposed to this have more in order to be something. So again, these are shifts in your relationship with yourself. And that has to be there. No sense in talking about I'm trying to improve my relationship with my husband or my wife. What kind of nonsense are you talking? If you have not tried to first improve your relationship with yourself, how can you possibly improve your relationship with your husband or wife, or your children, or your boss, or your neighbors, or your friends, or your business associates, or your clients, or it doesn't matter in what area of relationship you're trying to work. If you have not first worked on improving your relationship with yourself, if you have not accepted yourself, why should anybody else accept you? That's why you trying to get all these accoutrements to go with you. Because deep down inside, you feel that as you are inadequate. So let me get 2 PhDs, let me give me 4 Mercedes-Benz, let me give me 7 houses, because then maybe, it's nonsense. Deep down inside, you are feeling inferior. Deep down inside, you feel that you have no value and worth, just naked, just as you are. And I'm telling you, just as you are, you have worth enough. You can't have more worth than that. In fact, this other stuff obscures the worth. It obscures it. Now, I can't see your value behind all the Mercedes. The Mercedes blinds it. These PhDs have blinded your natural intelligence. You see? I could see it clearly if there was no PhDs. I could see your brilliance, just brilliant. But you went and got these PhDs, so now I think, well, maybe they're brilliant because they went and got a PhD. Now I realize that they were brilliant without a PhD. So sometimes these things obscures the fact. And we have to not lose ourselves, our identities in these things. So we have to alter our relationship with ourselves. And if we haven't, and if no one has told us this while we're growing up, and very rarely do they tell us this when we're growing up, right? Because your mama said if you don't get you a job and get you a car and get out of here, you ain't gonna be nothing. She don't know any better. But when you're telling that to a 4 or 5-year-old kid who believes the parent is infallible, who believes that when the parent says there's a Santa, the child finds it lock, stock, and barrel. What Bilal called the age of wonder and magic. And so when that parent tells you ain't going to be nothing unless you do this, and this kid bought that. And then here they go their whole life, struggling, trying to be something. You see? So we have to restore the right relationship to ourselves. Okay, which necessitates a lot of work on oneself. And then the fifth, certainly not the least task that we have to be prepared for is our own mortality. The fact of the matter is that death is real. Certain. You can count on it. Right? And now we have to find some meaning in life, taking death into consideration. Because What are you struggling to pay your mortgage off? You talking about a little 30, 40 years? You talking about what, 70 years on this little planet called Earth, a little speck of mud floating amidst the appalling immensity of the physical world. And then you down on this little piece of mud in this little neighborhood for 70 years. What is 70 years out of infinity? It is nothing. Right? Death is real. And life has to be made meaningful within the context of death. Now we do the opposite. In our culture, we hide from death. Right? All the cemeteries are put out on the way away. You understand? Everything is hidden. You see, nobody sees. In fact, you see everybody else dying, but you never see yourself dying. Now this is strange. When you see everybody else dying, for some reason you think you're not going to die. And the reality is that you're going to die. And now you got to deal with your mortality. And if you don't, believe me, crisis, about 40, 35, 40, suddenly the body going to start breaking down. Suddenly, you understand? The eyes go bad. And suddenly you realize, my God, I'm going to die. It hits you at this midlife. And again, one of the things I've noticed that during the midlife crisis is that there's so few of us prepared for the inevitability of our own demise. It shakes us up, right? But that's one of the first things that starts dissolving. Right? So we have to prepare ourselves. You see, we have to live a life that is so authentic that when death comes, I ain't gonna have nothing left for it to take. I would have used up all the life. You see? Take these bones and this bag of skin. That's it. I spent all my life. I did it. Right? But when you have held back living, thinking that you ain't going to die, now when death comes, and it will come, and you will cling and you will scream and beg for one more hour. Give me one more hour. I didn't get that Mercedes. Give me one more. I didn't get that piece. You understand? Full of regret. You would die like a cow. People like that die 1 billion times in one. Like a real person dies once. It's over. Because you've lived. And you've lived abundant, fully. That's what the scriptures mean, have been given life abundant. You live. You see. When I said death, do I mean your soul, your consciousness? No, of course not. When I talk about mortality, I'm talking about your ego. Because you've been many people before. What makes you think now that this entity that you give the name to, this person that I call Bhagwan, the consciousness that makes up this configuration has existed? I can't even talk about the fact of time, because there was no time. And it will go on existence. This body will change, yes. The little ego will change, of course. But if you identify with this ego in this body, then you will experience death. If your identity has been shipped to the deepest recesses of your being, to where Jesus shipped his, and where Krishna shipped his, and the Buddha shipped his, then you know you don't die. You know, what is the problem? No problem. So it's a very different thing. So again, our mortality and the necessity to shift the level of identities off of this body and this ego becomes necessary. Otherwise, we will live under the fear and tyranny of death. And you can't live like that. You can't live if you're afraid of death. It's just not possible. So these then are the tasks that we need to be prepared for in order to make the most of our adult lives. Now, I'm putting all of this up here because throughout the balance of these workshops and lectures, I will be coming back to these things time and time again, and I want you to have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Now, for the categories of anger, because you can see clearly how these categories of anger will start helping you to, managing these categories of anger will help you manage these tasks of life. The first category of anger, and we're going to talk about that today, and then we'll finish, we'll start some more next session. I'll put the first category here is our anger at others. The second category is others' anger at us. The third category is our anger at self. The fourth category is anger at the absent other. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all of these, so don't worry. And the fifth is abstract anger. Now, there's many other subcategories, but these are the 5 major categories. And now let's look at the first one here, our anger at others. Because if we don't learn how to manage our anger at others, will we be able to develop friendships? Will we be able to develop a spirit of cooperativeness? No way. No way. If you don't learn how to manage your anger at others, that other may be your boss, right? Or an employee, so you're going to have a hard time, on jobs and things of that nature. So it's just something that we have to learn to do. Our anger at others. And we all get angry. And again, the problem is not anger. The problem is the mismanagement of anger. That's the problem. That's what we want to learn how to do. How do we handle our anger at others effectively? How do we normally go about handling our anger at others?
You should try to make amends.
Yeah. Well, you angry at the other person, so you should make amends with them?
Sometimes, yeah.
All right. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you should try to talk about it.
All right.
If they're approachable.
Well, you don't want angry at the other, right? And if they're
if I'm
approachable,
angry
you
at
gotta
them, I'll
talk
approach
about it.
them.
All right, then. So you want to talk about it. We call that telling the truth. And we're telling the truth about our feelings. Now, the reality is that most of us never tell the truth about our feelings. And you certainly don't do it when there's something at stake. Telling the truth about our feelings is right. Because you tell the truth and the truth shall do what? Set who free?
You.
You. Has nothing to do with the other person. That's the first thing we have to understand. The telling of the truth has nothing to do with the other person. Not trying to impress nobody. Don't make it a part of your ego structure, right? Most of us make telling the truth part of our ego too. I tell the truth all the time, so now I'm telling the truth, and that's public proof that I'm telling the truth all the time. It's an ego trip. Values, right? You tell the truth as an act in your own behalf. Because whose anger is it? It's your anger. Who's miserable? You. It's some relief you are giving yourself. But we have to tell the truth about our feelings, and we don't know how to do that. Very often, most of us are alienated. We don't even know how we feel anymore. We've got so alienated from it. And even if that's not the case, but if this feeling is one of anger, and you got this ego myth going that says you never get angry, you're in a dilemma, aren't you? Right? I can't tell the person I'm angry at them because I've already told them I don't get angry. Now you're in a dilemma. Right? In a dilemma. But you're certainly right. To tell the truth is one of the ways that we can go about managing our anger at others. But you have to tell the truth the right way. If I'm angry at you and I confront you and I'm just start hollering at you, you made me this and that, what's going to happen to her?
She's going to get
mad.
She's going to get angry too, isn't she?
Yeah.
Right? So you have to use the right tone. There's a part of the brain, you all know, the reticular complex, the base of the brain, the serpent energy they call it. This instinct, this energy in us responds to sound and light. Now the ancients represented it as a serpent because it acts like a serpent. Like that serpent is coiled and you come close and it strikes you instantly, right? Well, this kind of reaction is instantaneous, like the bite of a snake. And the energy lies coiled here in the base of the brain, running all the way down to the spine. And the Indians used to call it Kundalini. Are you familiar with that? Kundalini and Chi and all that other stuff. And this is the energy now, right? Base core source of energy that triggers this thing. And it is sensitive to sound. So when you are hollering at somebody, even telling them the truth, far from getting their cooperation, you're going to get their confrontation, aren't you? So you have to use the right music. It can't be way up here, and it can't be way down here. It has no credibility when you're real down here. You're a joke, right? And if you're way up here, you're a threat. It's got to be right in the middle. And you have to practice that. Right? Because most of us never done that. Yeah, we told the truth way up there or way down there. Your boss made you angry. You see what I'm saying? That's how we express our anger at the boss, out of earshot, right? Because you don't want to be fired, right? Or if a person that is perceived as weaker than us, you made me, we all up over that person. You see what I'm saying? Which again is ineffective. So we have to practice getting it right in the middle, the right music. Will we get it right every time? Absolutely not. You don't need to be perfect. Just good enough. All right? Just good enough. That's all we need to do. And that comes from practice. Now, you can't read a book and learn, okay, this is what they say here, and then think that that's it. And now you're going to get up and put the book down and have the skill. You will not have the skill. You're going to have to, first of all, in your imagination, see yourself telling the truth about your feelings. Do it. One of the things, neuro-associative conditioning is what they call it. And it is used very often in, among athletes. And when found, for instance, that we have a player that's having some bad free throws, shooting, rather than put him out on the court, set them down, relax them, show them some breathing exercise, have them visualize, come into their imagination. The imagination is a faculty in human consciousness, right, that creates, right? Everything is put together in the imaginative faculty. So you through the process of visualization, you get him in there, right, and see himself standing at the free throw to shoot. Have him shoot 300 baskets, see them all going in. And after that process is in, you can actually take this person up, step them to the line, and you will see a dramatic improvement in their physical ability. And they haven't even physically touched the ball. And the reason for that is that everything that you do out here, you must first do in your mind. And in a specific place in your mind. Not in the basement, right? The mind, we talked already a little bit about it, right? Now I'll tell you about the services. We didn't finish all of it. I told you that we can't finish it all. But certainly, one of the things that you'll find, and that the mind, in addition to having memory and the capacity to do rational thought, rational thinking, categorize it also has a creative function on it. That's the imagination. Okay? The imagination. The house of Heru, Het Heru, we call it, because that's where the energy lives. So by putting in there, by a person visualizing doing a thing, then what it does, it trains subconscious. It trains every cell in the body. Every cell in the body. Whatever you put here goes through all the cells. Because each cell has its own brain. It's strange, isn't it? You thought all your intelligence was localized. No. Everywhere there's a cell, there's a brain. It has its own intelligence. So your intelligence is a cumulative, it's a composition of the intelligence permeating your whole being. The intelligence in your toe is a part of your IQ. You see? So you have to understand it is an aggregate phenomenon. right? And through the faculty of imagination, you're able to involve all of the cells. So it is training at the cellular level. Hence its efficacy. And meditation has been known for centuries. So I'm not saying something that is new. This is no new age anything. I don't even know why they call it new age, because all of the wisdom is old age. We should call it an old age movement, right? In any event, see yourself telling the truth. Because when you do that, you'll start feeling those complexes in you that resist you telling the truth. You will know exactly what you got to work on. You see? You'll know exactly what you got to work on. And what you're going to find, your most difficult barrier will be this ego mythology. It's hard to get past it. It's hard to get past that ego stuff. But in any case, telling the truth in the right way. And what is it that you're trying to get the person to do? First, you're trying to get their cooperation out of you. Right? If you have a grievance with another person that has caused you to have the experience of anger, the only way to resolve the conflict is to try to get that person cooperation. That might be your husband, might be your wife, maybe your boss. You know, people that you cannot and do not want to separate yourself from. So you got to be able to resolve the conflict. You can't resolve conflict if you can't seek and establish cooperation. The heart of conflict resolution depends upon one's ability to cooperate, to actually be able to bring another person or enter into a space with another person where cooperation can take place. So you're seeking their cooperation, right? And the relief comes in the sense that you're now able to tell your tale. Because, again, your anger is your perception. It don't mean it actually happened. It don't mean it's really real, but you need to tell your side of the story, right? Because this is what I see. This is what I see, and you need to be able to do that. The person needs to be able to hear you tell your tale in order for you to get some relief. But if you cannot create cooperation in that person, you can't tell your tale. So these are the things you're looking for. And you want to tell the truth in this thing, of course. You know, when you do get a chance to open your mouth, tell the truth. And you tell the truth exactly about how it makes you feel. And how does it make you feel? Fundamentally, have you ever thought about it when you're angry at somebody? What is the deep underlying core of the experience? Think about it. When you were angry at somebody, anybody has a recent anger attack? I know you have, but will anybody talk openly about it? Right?
Yeah.
You have one?
I had one at work.
All right.
Where an attorney came in to have some work done. He was setting up work for the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to be the only one at work, and I had to work for everybody who was there. So he wanted me to give him like a priority, which means do my work first every time he comes in. And I told him I couldn't do that because I didn't know who else was coming to work that day. And he went to personnel and told him I said that I wasn't going to do his work, which is not what I said.
All right. And now, and so you were angry at him, right? And so there's the lawyer. And what was she angry about? What did the lawyer do?
He lied.
He lied.
Disrespectful.
Right, he lied on her, right? And that wasn't fair, was it? So he violated your whole definition of what is the truth and what is fair, which is your definition, right? And that's your perception of what you saw. And when the people lie on you and treat you so unfairly, that makes you what?
Angry.
Right. Makes you angry. Again, I want you to see all these connections, right? And that anger was some energy for you to do something about it. Did you do anything about it?
No, I got the call. That's when I found out.
Yeah, but I'm saying now that you found out about it, after you found out about it, what did you do with that anger energy?
Nothing.
You violated your ego mythology, didn't you?
Well,
no, I'm only teasing.
yeah.
But at the point, she got the anger and she suppressed it, didn't she?
Yeah.
Right? Now, more than to suppress this anger, I want to look and see right underneath this anger. We know what you did to the anger, but I want to see the feeling that was underlying that anger. How did that make her feel? So when this lawyer comes in here, barks out all these orders to you, and then when you don't do it and you offer him a rational explanation, you were courteous, you went all over him, etc. And then he goes back and lie, and which is so unfair and all these other things, and they call you to confront you about it.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel about yourself?
Well, it made me feel, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the
I
thing.
had confused feelings because I thought I was handling it the best way I could. He just asked me a simple question. I didn't see what the problem
It
was.
confused you because you couldn't see
I didn't
what in the
understand
world was this man going on for.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't see anything in the encounter that
That I
would warn
did.
him. Right. So you confused. And then the fact that they took his testimony and confronted you with, how did that make you feel about yourself? What conclusion?
It made me feel like I didn't count because
That you
why are
didn't.
you confronting me with something he said and you didn't even ask me,
All right.
did I talk to him first
So
of
you
all?
didn't count at all, did you?
No, I didn't
So what do
count.
we call it when a person have a
That's
feeling that they don't count?
That's
Huh?
worthless.
Worthlessness.
Useless.
He made you feel worthless,
Yeah,
like you didn't count.
yeah, I didn't count.
And you will find that almost all of our anger. Now, remember when I said something about your self-relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Now look how you're relating to yourself in that instance. Suppose you had a billion of those episodes. You will start crystallizing, right? A constellation will form one. A complex will form one. And you'll start feeling that fundamentally, I am. Now look what that's done to your relationship to yourself, right? We call that self-contempt. The exact opposite of self-respect. Is that self-respect when you walk around feeling that I'm worthless? Does that enhance your self-respect? So you're right. And that's what we'll find with most of us. That when we peel down our anger and get down to the issues, we begin to find out that the bottom line felt experience is one of worthlessness. And that destroys our self-respect. Right? And when you destroyed your self-respect, and since you felt worthless, there was no point. It almost like, ain't nothing to do.
Well, the only thing I said was that even if I confronted him, he would just lie to me and tell me he didn't say that to her.
Yeah. So you let it win.
I let it go.
Right.
Because
Which
I
is
didn't think I
another-
could get truth out of him.
Yes. You let it go.
I let it go.
Which is another technique. Is you can just let it go, right? And give yourself. But what you don't want to do is suppress it and then displace it. You didn't whoop the kids that night. Think hard now. Did you go home and whoop you? Did you holler, snap at Pooh or anything? What about on the expressway?
No, I got my girls riled up because we were sitting
Oh,
in a
okay.
room full
So
of
you
people.
went and you caused.
And then I told everybody, I said, you know that guy
You
who
started
was
a
just
commotion,
here?
right?
He called personnel and told them I said I wasn't going to do the job. And then everybody couldn't believe it. They were as surprised as I was. So
you got a little.
I got
you
it all.
little.
I let everybody get mad.
So she displaced across the office.
Yeah,
right?
I let everybody get mad about it because
Right.
you sitting in a room full of people. Everybody was cordial to him.
So what she did, she went and shared her anger.
I shared it.
Isn't
I
that
put it
nice?
on.
She went and shared her
They
anger.
understood where I was coming from.
Well, that's a way of handling our anger. But we're going to look as we go down further at these different styles. We all got our style. We all got our styles. But I'm glad that you volunteered that because what I want you to see is that underneath the feeling of anger, there's a feeling of worthlessness. All to come from that. And this is the thing that is dangerous because too much of it will destroy your sense of self-respect and your relationship to yourself, and you'll wind up in a state of self.
And this is how anger is, hatred is created.
Of
Because
course.
these are only attempts to chip your self-respect.
Yes.
And if you are somewhat intact or if you're trying to be intact, you understand that this is an attempt to chip you.
Yes.
And but you can't
Absolutely.
see your recourse.
Right. Absolutely. But this is the foundation of hatred. Because what is
That's the
hatred?
foundation of hatred.
Hatred is the intent of
Just
is
hate 'em.
revenge.
Yeah.
It's a thirst for revenge. Because the truth of the matter is that most of us normally seek relief from our anger at others through an act of revenge, however comes. Sometimes it's unconscious. You sitting down, you angry at your wife, and you sleep, and she just happened to walk by and tripped over. You didn't do it on purpose. And really on the surface of your mind, you didn't do it. But the subconscious knew that you had revenge, and it has an independent life of your conscious mind. I want you to understand that. It is independent. It does its own thing. Right? On your conscious side, you say, no, no, no. But the subconscious knows what's going down. You see? And you'll accidentally waste some powder on her dress. I mean, it will really feel like an accident to you. You apologize, but the point is the unconscious. It was there. So we tend to go for revenge because the feeling is that, well, so-and-so hurt me, I'm going to hurt them back. When Emma went into the secretary pool and riled up those people, right? It was her way of trying to, what?
And then I got him back again, though.
See, she got revenge.
You got revenge.
I did get revenge.
You got revenge.
Yes, I did.
All right, tell us how you got your revenge.
One-on-one.
Tell us what happened. How you
Okay,
did it.
he was supposed to give me work for 2 days. The first day he didn't show up.
All right, so this is a whole 2 days later, right?
Yeah, so I had forgotten about
On the surface part.
Yeah, I had forgot about him. The last day that I worked, he came in, and it was like he came in, and to me, he was insulting me again. He said, "Oh, I see that there's a couple people here today." So I said, "Well, I'm the only one on the clock." So I was letting him know that you still got to deal with me. So he gave me his work. He only gave me 3 or 4 pages. I mean, he didn't have the whole thing. And I'm still operating that if other people bring me work, I still have to do it, which is exactly what happened. And by the time he finally got his whole job together, I was doing a rush for someone who was there, who was sitting in the room with me. And I told him, I probably won't be able to finish your job because you just gave me all of your work. And that caused him a dilemma. But it didn't bother me.
Of course.
That was my revenge.
That was your revenge.
I finished it, but he didn't know that I would.
And you wouldn't
And
go tell.
I didn't either.
Okay.
Really, I didn't know that I would either. When I finished with the other person, I just went to work on his stuff.
Right.
And
But you could have put his in front of the other person.
Huh? No, I could not have.
You couldn't have?
No, I could not have. But what it was, I needed to stay over 10 minutes to finish his job, and I stayed over to finish it. But he didn't have knowledge of that. He only had the knowledge that I wouldn't finish it, but I would do as much as I could. I like that.
Now, what's going to happen next? Do we see a chain reaction going to set up here? Yeah. What can we almost predict going to happen?
He going to get me back.
Hatfield McCoy.
What is Hatfield McCoy?
It's just
ongoing feud.
But Sister Kiva, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I could see her probably maybe demonstrating to him too that she was competent, that she could do it.
I did it.
And so I could see that she maybe subconsciously she didn't want him to feel that she could not handle the job, and she could.
Right. And I can see him not coming back with any kind of rebuttal. I could see him understanding, well, maybe not understanding, but seeing her from a different perspective.
Because he left with one piece of information.
Looking at her from a different perspective. And so maybe he might alter the way he approaches her the next time.
But they're definitely going to have some common. But the point is that whole process is one that we go through sometime 100 times a day. You know, and so we all therefore have those challenges. And again, these are things that just are ordinary parts of life. And the ideal is to manage the anger in such a way, because you're going to get angry. The ideal is to manage it in such a way that it is psychologically healthy and nonviolent. You see, that's the whole goal. And we won't get it right all the time. We just need to get it right enough. So that this man don't come back one day when you and see the paper is not done and pull a 45 out and blow your brains out. You see. So again, that's a good example. But the thing is this is a little extreme. But the point is that most of us seek relief from our anger at others by an act of anger, either revenge, either overt or covert. You see. see, and that just sets up a whole cycle. But you have to have a degree of sensitivity, subjective sensitivity, to see that in ourselves. More about this example later on down the session when we come to early recollection, because we're going to see something. You're going to see that that's a historical technique. And certainly she did not invent that on the spot, folks. Don't be deceived. This has been a style that's been there since 5 or 6 years old. It is a traditional tool that she has in her bag of tools for handling anger. And then she put it back. You see? And she's been carrying around all of her, whatever old age she is. All right? I won't tell that. So we all have our bag of tools. It's just that these tools are tools that from our childhood.
Okay.
And they're no longer appropriate.
Yeah.
And that's all. And we just have to edit it and update it. Okay? Oh boy, we're just about out of time for today. I don't think I'll go into the next segment. We'll continue where we left off today, next time. We're still talking about the first category of anger, our anger at others, and how to manage that anger. And next time we're going to talk about some of the consequences that we are experiencing when we don't manage it right. We're going to hopefully I'd like for you to feel comfortable to bring your incidents from your day-to-day real stuff, as long as it's not too personal for you, because the ideal is that here I try to stress the fact that your worth and value as a human being is not an issue. So you're free to just be yourself. But we share, through these demonstrations, we get so many different perspectives of how each of us have gone about handling certain difficult situations. All right, so in the last 5 minutes, are there any questions about anything that we said thus far?
I want to
I
make a
know there
comment
is.
about the reticular complex. You
Mhm.
said that two things that affect it is sound and light.
Yes.
What about light?
Light, yes. Whenever, for instance, there's a sudden light, it'll startle you. You see, a sudden light will startle you. It'll scare you. Usually. That's why a lot of people have fear of light and stuff like that.
Oh.
That light.
And that triggers epileptics.
Of
And even
course.
some video games will bring on
Even
seizures.
some video, we all know that now. We didn't know that prior to the age of the video game, but that's one of the things. In fact, there's a thing called rapid eye movement, okay, that's based on that whole concept. And you use it to remove traumas, but it also can cause traumas. Like,
It's interesting. I just caught a little bit of something last night, and they were talking about this technique, and it's all in the eyes. They use it to help people to release themselves of really painful incidents, events in their lives.
right. And one of the theories that, you know, your eyes, when we talk, like when we communicate each other, and the way your eyes are moving is a reflection of where you are in your brain, what part of your brain you are accessing for the information that is involved in the conversation. Like if I'm looking this way, I'm looking that way, I'm looking up, you can tell whether I'm pulling from the right hemisphere, left hemisphere, whether I'm pulling from the past memory, if I'm looking straight ahead. You know, and there's about 6 or 7 different positions of the eyes, because there's a physiology of thinking. Now, in ancient time, men and women who had studied mysticism understood the physiology of thinking. So sometimes not just the eyes scary, but I mean even the body, the breathing. You can even see which nostril. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But the point is that there's a physiology. So if that is the case, if a person has got a trauma somewhere, right, and you know what part of the brain it is, you know which place to put the eyes in, because just by doing a word association with a person. For instance, word association test, where you're given a word, and I said knife, and you react, and I said pencil, and you said react, when you're given association, well, you can measure the delay in the person's response, and you can tell whether there's an emotional conflict, because they're hesitating, which means there's some emotional material they're processing. It's not a smooth, immediate response. And each one of us have a different average. If I gave Linda 100 words here, right, some of those words would trigger certain traumas in her where she'll pause. Her eyes will follow, you know, where is that, right? And they will never know because it's unconscious.
People don't know.
So there's a lot of different ways. Dream analysis is probably one of the most popular ways to access the unconscious, the contents in your personal unconscious. And remember, I'm making a distinction between your personal unconscious and the unconscious per se. There's something in you that you can't know. And then there's some things that you've known and have forgotten that is buried in the personal unconscious. And that can be traumatizing. And so that rapid eye movement is a methodology, a recent methodology, but one of many for dealing with that. So these are all very interesting things. One of the things you're going to find as we go deeper and deeper, and one of the things I like about these kind of things is that for the first time we can really go deep, 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 because this is the structure on which you have to build your spirituality. It is also the structure on which you have to develop the quality of your life. This is not just philosophy. This is not psychology. This is not just sitting around talking about these things. At least I hope that you don't take it like that. My intention is that you should really take advantage of this information and really do some homework on yourself. So, what I want you to do as homework for the next session is I want you to really reflect and introspect and really list out for yourself mostly. But certainly if you can share something like that next time with us, how you personally handle your anger at others. Out of all the ways you handle your anger, I want you to find your dominant style of handling your anger at others. Is it going mute, the old silent treatment? It is to become confrontational? It is to avoid the situation? I mean, what is your dominant? There's many different ways, but you're going to find you have a dominant style. I want that dominant style. I want you to know it. You don't have to necessarily share it, but you should know your dominant style of managing your anger next time. You should do that much homework on yourself. Because this awareness of that is the first step in managing it. Because it's habituated. It's probably been going on a long, long time. And it's probably So that'll be the homework, is to locate through introspection the dominant style that you have for managing your anger. Do you turn into a gossiper? A lot of people don't know that. Gossip is a form of anger expression. I'm angry at you, Linda, so I'll go and I'll gossip about you. Really. It's a form of anger. Now, I don't know how to express my anger at Linda. I don't know how to tell her the truth. I don't know how to negotiate. I don't know how to seek her cooperation and give some none of that. So I go gossip on her. You know, Linda, she did this, and her old man this and this. You know what I mean? And I'm hurting her. I'm hurting her image. I'm beating the hell out of Linda's image. Look at me. I'm tearing it up. Unconsciously, that's what I want to do. I want to beat her up. But I can't, so I beat up her image. It's deep. It's deep. You see? But it is a form of mismanaged anger. Right? It's a form of mismanaged anger. It's a covert form of seeking revenge, where you're beating up the image now and the reputation. So, yes, sister.
I don't know if I'm so aware of, in order to uncover it, you know what I'm saying? Because you just brought up this whole issue of
You don't use gossip, do you?
I don't even think about it, but sometimes I do.
Yeah, we all. Yeah.
And so I hadn't thought about that I might do that until you mentioned it, so I don't know how I'm going to come up with it.
You just examine, look at as much as you can. Sometimes, you know, you have to spend a little time with it because it's obscured. And again, it requires us to kind of redirect our attention for once on ourselves, and we have to begin to sort through memories and using our imaginative faculty, trying to see ourselves. You may have to go and just take a survey of people. You know now, I act when I get it. What do I do? Because it may come to that, I don't know. But the point is that each of us need to bring that up into awareness, not to condemn us. Do this make us bad human beings because we gossip? Absolutely not. Remember, according to me, there is no question of your value and worth. That's never going to be no issue here, right? We just want to find the stuff that is no longer adequate. Edit it. Simple. Gossiping might have been the only way that a 4 or 5-year-old could really get revenge, because it's weak and it's powerless. It can't whoop nobody, you see. So it can beat up the image, the reputation, you see. Or there may be a threat, you know, that, well, this is my boss. I can't, you know, run the risk of being fired, abandoned, but I'm angry. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways. Dreams even. Some people, they process a lot of their anger in dreams. Or they be tearing people up in dreams, you understand? Killing people and all kinds of stuff, you know? So sometimes one goes into the dream usually is an evasion of the contents of the unconscious. Stuff that you don't even know going on, you see? And that stuff comes up out of that dream, because it's trying to get some relief. If it can't find no relief out here on this plane of reality, then it seeks relief at this next plane, and it'll go into a dream state. A lot of times that's where we'll take our lusts, where we'll take our grief. I mean, really that low down shadow stuff that you don't want nobody to know anything about it. You see, that stuff you know it's there, but you don't want to. You can't have no opportunity to act it out. You might go to jail. Someone catch you. So you usually go into a dream state, and in that you give yourself some relief. You see. So I think we did enough for today. So next Saturday at noon, and spread the word. Most people are welcome. If you have friends that want to come and sit on one session, they all welcome to sit on one session. We're not going to be petty here with this stuff. Everybody don't have money. You know that. So you're most free to invite a guest if you like for one session. All right, thank you.
Thank you.